All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. All episodes are available to watch or listen to on your platform of choice, whether it's RTÉ.ie, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Match highlights from the Euros are on YouTube and RTÉ.ie/sport. The video section there, plus GA highlights too. We'll be delving into the Euro 2024 knockout stages today and reviewing the League of Ireland Men's Premier Division as it returns from the mid-season break. To discuss that and more, I'm joined by Keith Treacy and Graham Gartland. Of course, the Slovakians were unfortunate to lose 2-1 to England after extra time yesterday in Gelsenkirchen, and the other game in the last 16 that took place yesterday was in Cologne, with Spain beating Georgia 4-1, and then the day before, the hosts Germany beat Denmark 2-0, and Switzerland knocked out a very out of sorts Italy 2-0 as well. But let's talk about Slovakia first. And Graham, I think we have to all feel a little bit sorry for them, because granted they had to ride their luck at times, but they were only about 30 seconds away from holding on and getting one of the most famous wins in their history and getting to a quarter-final, having really stymied England for much of that match.
Yeah, I think it was England's first shot on target. I know they'd hit the post. Declan Rice had a shot off the post. Harry Kane had a header from a set piece that just went by the post that he probably should score on. But I think it was, like you said, it was the first shot on target that they conceded in the game, and for it to be a goal, it's a long throw in that they probably need to get first contact on when it comes into the box, and take nothing away from the overhead. It's unbelievable to do that at that point in time from Bellingham. It just shows the calibre you're dealing with in terms of stepping up for big moments. I think he has that. But from a Slovakia point of view, they were really good in the first half, and they probably done enough to go ahead, and then they were tried to manage the game a little bit without coming out and showing too much. There was maybe a couple of chances on the counter-attack they could have done better with, but like you said, I thought they frustrated England. I thought they kept everything in front of them a little bit. Nothing got down the sides of them. I know England aren't probably great at getting down the sides, but they limited Saka. Foden was quiet in the game. Bellingham was quiet up until the goal, but you could tell he was trying things. And again, a lot of the game was in front of him. Mainu started the game really well, and he looked like he was the one that would, manipulate the ball enough to play forward. But a lot of the game was in front of them, and they were quite comfortable. And Lobotka from midfield would get them playing. He's a really good player, plays for Napoli. He can control the tempo, and when there is a little bit of panic in it, you put his foot on it and make a couple of passes just to take the sting out of it as well. And I did think they were unlucky. They deservedly went a goal ahead, and then they were holding on a little bit, and England were pushing. Did Slovakia do enough to keep them out ultimately? Probably not, but I didn't think they deserved to lose the game, and I know it's a knockout, so if I had went to penalties in the end, it would have been justice. But over the 90 minutes, I think Slovakia were unlucky to go out.
Yeah, Lobotka is a player, obviously mentioned there, who's been brilliant for Napoli in terms of winning the league, Keith. And this was the season before last, of course, a brilliant Napoli team. And he's maybe a player who wouldn't get a whole amount of attention, but it's kind of contrasting that England don't actually have a player of that profile within their team to sit beside Declan Rice. And what we saw yesterday was probably Groundhog Day in terms of their performance level from an England point of view.
Yeah, I think Mainu is doing. He's doing okay in there. It's not. He's the one that could get you playing, but I do actually think Adam Wharton is a better footballer than Mainu. But do you really throw somebody in who a year ago was playing in the Championship? It's a big ladder to have to climb to go into that. So, yeah, Mainu, Gallagher's good. He runs around. He'll set the tempo with his press, but in terms of when he gets the ball, I don't think he can hurt teams in terms of his technical ability and his passing ability. So I understand why Mainu is in there, but there's so many things wrong with that English team that, like, they've played 4 games now, and 4 of them have been absolutely underwhelming. The fourth one, the last one there, was a hard watch as well. Bellingham scores an unbelievable goal to get them out of a hole, but Bellingham didn't have a great game. And I know a lot of people are talking about Southgate's substitutions. I think Foden was on played 94 minutes, and he was poor. He looked really poor. There's no intensity, no energy in that press. It's sort of, okay, the ball's gone there, I'll run there now, rather than seeing it developing and thinking, I'll nick a couple of yards and I'll put them under real pressure. It's just, I'll make a token gesture now. Kane looks tired. Foden, Saka look tired. And the fact that they keep churning these boys out, I understand why there's loyalty there, but when you've got Gordon, Palmer, Eze on the bench, you're thinking, you've got to change it up. You've got to slap these lads on the wrist, because at international football, you can't have 3 bad games, let alone 4 bad games not turning up. And it's not that the technical ability is not there. It's the legs, it's the freshness. It just doesn't look anywhere near like it used to. And the real worrying thing for me was, Raf, they could have went 2-0 down yesterday. There was England had a free kick. I think it was the start of the second half, or maybe late on in the first half, on the halfway line. And Mark Gahey gets it, puts his hand on it, plays it across to John Stones. John Stones is fixing his hair, doesn't even see the ball roll past his feet. And then one of the Slovakia players chips Pickford, and it goes about a yard wide. And you're thinking, if I seen this in Fairview Park, I'd be roaring at the lads. Literally too busy fixing his hair to figure out what's going on in the game. Little things like that are absolutely really winding me up. And look, even I think the English media are going one way too far with it. I think if they'd have played well for 4 games, we'd be hearing it's coming home. We'd be hearing all this. They usually go one way too far the other. But this time, it hasn't been great. But I do think it's a little bit too much. They did win the group. They only conceded one goal in the thing. But even Southgate's record, Raf, when you look at his record, the 2018 World Cup finished 4th. I don't think that's a bad one. That's not a bad result for the English. In the 2020 Euros, they finished runners-up to Italy. Could have easily won that, got beat on penalties. In the World Cup in 2022, got to the quarter-finals, and they've minimum got to the quarter-finals of this Euro. So why Gareth Southgate is under so much pressure is literally just because of the amount of talent they have in the building. I understand it, but on the face of it, he's done an outstanding job, the best job that probably any England manager has ever done.
Yeah, because in many ways, as Keith said there, the 2018 World Cup, they did brilliantly in terms of results. Obviously, they didn't face a real top team until they got to the semi-final, and then they got knocked out, Graham. But the one thing, that was a weaker team individually in terms of the talents, but they were more cohesive. The one thing that they definitely had in 2018 was that set-piece threat, and that carried them a whole way, and they were very lucky it came back yesterday, in terms of that's how the goals against Slovakia happened.
Yeah, but again, there was nothing off the training ground. There was like a flick-on header from a long throw-in from Kyle Walker, and the second one's a poor shot from the edge of the box, and Ivan Toney heads it back across. But it's nothing that they would have had in the 2018 World Cup where you thought this is very inventive. The one where they changed the direction of the free kick, and the delivery, and Harry Maguire, I think, scores. So they've nothing in that sense. I agree with Keith. I think the pressure on them and all the sort of the journalists and the English media, the scrutiny that's on them this time is because of the talent pool that they're dealing with. Everybody touches on it. Foden's player of the year in the Premiership. He scores X amount of goals. Bellingham's one of the players of the year in Spain. Kane's the player of the year in Germany. Like, they've got 3 of the best performing players in each of these leagues. Champions League winners, Premier League winners. I know Bayern Munich didn't win anything. And then they're looking like, I know, look, we're all sitting here as people who played the game and coaching the game, and you're thinking Kyle Walker staying on at right back. I know it leads to the goal with the long throw in, but like, how Trent isn't on the team when they need that creativeness to come on and go. Well, he has the ability to play passes. He has that technical ability, and Trent has this relaxedness, is that if he misplaces a pass, he's gonna get on and try it again. He doesn't, nothing phases him like that. And I'm thinking, you need to get that type of talent on the pitch. I do think there's a disconnect. I do think Rice sometimes collects the ball too deep off the back line, and then his next pass, instead of it being a 20-yard punch into his wingers coming on off the line or to Bellingham, it ends up being a 40-yard pass to break a line. And that's too big a pass for the defensive midfielder just to pick off, because it's travelling that distance. He just steps across and nicks it. So I think their distances are a bit wrong in terms of how they're trying to progress the ball up the pitch. I know that a little bit technical or coaching jargon, but in terms of finding them little holes, they need to be punched through as quick as you can. And once you punch through, then Slovakia's midfield have to then recover and get back behind the ball. So I do think they're a bit off. I agree. I think Kane looks, his movement isn't sharp in the box. He's not checking. He's not even like checking to pull off or cutbacks. They're not getting to the byline for cutbacks. All of that stuff just isn't there. And I thought Parma, when he came on, was good in terms of he was direct. His touches were great. He's willing to just turn and get at people. The left side is a problem. They just have no balance. Foden isn't, I touched on this before, Foden isn't a left-sided player that's going to go on the outside of you. He's not. That's not what he is. He's actually a midfielder that when he collects the ball, he nearly threatens the pass, and then you, as a defender, then you try and block the pass, and he just drags it by you, keeps it on his back foot. He'll threaten like he's going to open out his left foot, play a pass, and if you overcommit, he'll drag it and then play outside of the left foot. But when you put him on one side and pigeonhole him, you lose that. He loses that ability to then connect with people, and he loses that ability to go either way. And that's the bit that I see where I think they're not utilising him enough. I agree. I thought Mainu for the first 20 minutes was good because he was willing to take the ball and move it and drive through people, but they're too they're not connected enough. And then when Bellingham does drop back in and flattens the midfield a little bit, sometimes the wingers need to come inside and play in them little holes, and they're not really. It's just not working for them, and they do look like they lack a bit of energy, and they do look like they lack a bit of even power at times. You're thinking just overpower these. Like, I thought they'd overrun Slovakia after watching Slovakia against Romania. I thought England will have too much power for them, but it didn't come across like that at all.
Yeah, and how do England measure up against Switzerland then, Keith? Because that is the next challenge for them.
I think that'd be a cracking game. The Swiss have obviously proved that they're a very good outfit. I know a lot of people have tipped them to go deep, but you know, I always look at them and think, yeah, I like Xhaka. I think he's very, very good. There's one or two others, Freuler in the middle, that can play a bit of football, but you don't look at them and fear them. But maybe that's me being a little bit naive, because I think these will give the English a really, really good game. They have a very good XG, scored over 7 goals already in the tournament defensively. They're no mugs with Fabian Schär back there as well at Newcastle. So look, I think it'll be a great game, but England need to improve vastly, because if they give Switzerland the chances that they give everybody else in the tournament, they'll have to score 4 goals to win the game. So one thing for me that Graham has touched on as well, I think he's spot on with Bellingham. Bellingham is in the number 10 role. He wants to get on the ball and make things happen. When you look at Foden, he doesn't want to run away. He doesn't want to provide penetration. So he's coming in the midfield as well, because Trippier is not getting on the ball on his left foot. So he's getting on his right foot, which is shown in the pitch. So Foden is coming inside. Bellingham is already in there. Saka is not particularly keeping his width too well, so he's coming inside. And you've Kane dropping deep because he wants to get on the ball and fling that big pass over the top. But nobody's running in behind. And people are always saying to me, but Kane did it so well. Kane did it so well because Son knew when he gets it, I'm getting on my bike and I'm just going to run and he will find me. Saka doesn't. Saka looks at him. Foden looks at him. Bellingham is looking at him thinking, give it to me feet. Somebody needs to run beyond. If that's Anthony Gordon, Ibrisi, Eze, whoever it is, somebody has to start running in behind. Even if they go to a 5 at the back and put Tony or Watkins up front with Kane. Because Kane had a header. I know we're saying he looks a little bit leggy. He had a header in the games where it was about 7 yards out and he put it a yard wide, and it was a quick header, but you know, you put your mortgage on Harry Kane hitting the back of the net there, and you're just thinking the more they miss these chances, the more the Slovakia are going to grow into. And look, they were lucky. They were really lucky to get over the line. But again, I think Gareth Southgate will just dust down the whiteboard and say, back to square one, let's see what we can do. But I'd love to see Gordon in. I'd love to see Palmer in. And I'd love to see him slap one of the big boys on the wrist. If that's a Harry Kane or a Jude Bellingham, I don't think it'll be Bellingham after the heroics of last night. Maybe a Harry Kane. I know he scored a goal, but slap him on the wrist and say, there's the captain. He's not performing. He's out. Because Ollie Watkins has had a brilliant season. Even Tony, I know, with the betting stuff, has been in and just came back to the Premier League. But there's too many good players chomping at the bit that if you're underperforming, I don't care if your name is Harry Kane or Jude Bellingham. If you don't play well, you come out. And it has to be like that, because that'll keep everybody sharp. I'm sure Anthony Gordon is on the bench looking around going, any chance, like I can run at people, I can open this team up. And that's one thing that the English team aren't really doing. When you look at Saka, when he plays for Arsenal, runs at people, isolates them, lovely little balls down the line. It's not really happening. He's getting it and they're moving it. They're trying to pass teams open rather than running at them. And with that talent, Palmer in particular, give him the ball, let him open, let him attract people to them and then open them out. And I wonder whether it's even a debate that people might be thinking, would a Jack Grealish be better here? Because with them low blocks that people are playing against England, if he goes and gets somebody on a yellow card straight away with the amount of fouls that he wins, all of a sudden they're on the back foot and he can't be quite as tight, can't be quite as aggressive. I'm not sure, but I get the feeling Gareth Southgate is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Yeah, and England, their quarterfinal will be against Switzerland, 5 o'clock kickoff, and like every other game, it is live on RT2 and the RT player all the way through to the final. Now, Switzerland did well against Italy, of course, Graham, winning 2-0, but I think the story has ended up being just what a pale imitation Italy have been of not just the team that won the Euros 3 years ago, but just in general. But although we have to remember as well, Italy have missed 2 World Cups in a row, which would have been unthinkable, but they look bereft of talent. And then when you look at what's coming through as well, it's not it doesn't look too good. They're talking about transition, but transitioning to where, it doesn't seem very clear.
Yeah, Capello came out with a statement there about 3 weeks ago after, or 2 weeks ago after the Spain game, and said that they've become too tactically driven at underage level, and it's costing them their game changes at the top level. So they haven't got players that's willing to dribble by people, that they're putting the system ahead of the individual player at the youth level in Italy, and this is what is causing them to not have anybody, not many dribblers at the top end of the pitch, not many creative players at the top end of the pitch to really hurt people. So Capello's come out with that. Spalletti has come out and said that they're in transition. It was a tournament that he got a view of where he needs to be and what players that can come with him. The goalkeeper, De Marama, said that basically they lacked intensity and they lacked the power to play at this level, and that they were overran by Switzerland, which is damning. But yeah, they are in transition of what they need to be defensively. I think they've got good players in the back line, but where's your, like, you go back on the Italian teams, like obviously Pirlo would be the one that you think that can control the game, but you remember like World Cup 94, Roberto Baggio is probably the best player in the world in 94. Single-handedly dragged Italy to the World Cup final after Ireland had beat them in the opening game. You always have players, a Del Piero type of players that can produce things, Totti, and they're missing these type of individual players. And they all, don't get me wrong, they all worked really hard, and they played, they had that freedom in their structure. But yeah, it was, I think they took defeat graciously as well. I know they came out and said, look, Switzerland deserved to win. We didn't deserve anything to win in the game. But yeah, that would be the worrying bit of how they fix this, because it's very hard to turn creativity on, and players, you need to get the young players through that have that freedom of playing. So it feels like Italy are going through that transition to try and get more attacking players, players that can hurt people at the top end of the pitch. And we've seen that, like Switzerland at Vargas, who has been excellent for them, and he scored a wonderful goal where he just checks and bends one in the far top corner. So yeah, it was damning on Italy, and like you said, for them to, I look at when we're talking about them beating England on penalties in the Euros there, and I think it was 2021, actually wasn't. So it's probably looking poor on England having not beaten them at Wembley, when you can see that they didn't qualify for the World Cup the following year and they've gone out now. But I think defensively Italy were better then. Chiellini was still playing, Bonucci was still playing. I think defensively they were much better set up back in 2021 than they are now. So, but that's where I think England needed to turn that screw and go, look, we're at home, we're 1-0 up, and we're gonna kill the game. I seen that a little bit yesterday. They went 2-1 up, and there was a moment in the game where they had a chance. They won it back in Slovakia's half, and they had a chance to go kill them, and they turned back and played. And I was like, you have a chance to just take the game out of someone's hand here. Go and take it. And that, to me, I think the mentality thing of just being ruthless in the moment, and like, the game's dead now. Like, but again, like I said, I think Italy are in that transition that they need a little bit more intensity, was one of the words they used as well in all the reports. But Switzerland fully deserve to win it, and I think that's going to be a really good game, because like I said, I think Switzerland might overload England in midfield with the 3-5-2, and they play a box then as well. So I think they might have an extra man in midfield, and England are going to need a lot of legs in there.
Yeah, and the Swiss, Keith, had already shown some of Germany's vulnerabilities in the final group game. And then Denmark sort of showed a little bit of that as well. I know the result was 2-0 in the end. A lot of VAR controversies. Both sides had to literally weather the storm as well. I mean, the conditions in Dortmund during that last 16 game were pretty horrendous at times. So Germany, true, and playing Spain, who we'll talk about very shortly, but they're very vibrant in attack, but there's still a few question marks there, because they're also a country who've been in transition.
Yeah, I take your point, but I think the best thing for the Germans is, I mean, I was asked about the Germans before the tournament started, and I tipped them as a bit of a dark horse, and people were saying you can't tip the Germans as a dark horse, but nobody was throwing them around as, people thinking that they could win the tournament. And, when you look at it, how well they've started the tournament, how solid I feel they've been. When you look at Neuer in goal, Rudiger, probably the best centre-half in the world right now, alongside Schlagerbeck. Schlagerbeck's had a brilliant season at Borussia Dortmund as well. So then Toni Kroos, we all know he's retiring at the end of the year, or at the end of the tournament. So he's going to put all his eggs into this basket and really empty the basket, empty the game for him. So look, his engine will be great. He won't lose the ball at all. And then Ilkay Gundogan ahead of him. Kai Havertz is probably the question mark. I think, is there enough goals there? But with Musiala chipping in as well, Leroy Sané is always a danger as well. Gundogan can score a goal. So I think the Germans are going to get themselves into the final. I know they have the Spanish next, Raf, and whoever comes out of that tie, I think will get themselves into the final of the draw. Obviously, the French are there as well, but they've been less than impressive so far. And the Germans are the ones, for me, on form. I know the Spanish have been really impressive, but I like the Germans, and I think with them at home, I don't think they should be underestimated. And I seen Rudiger, there was a ball coming into the box and he cleared it, and they're 2-0 up against Denmark with 5 minutes to go, and he's celebrating, looked like he's just scored a goal in the World Cup final. And if I'm a centre midfielder and I'm running around, you see a centre half doing that. I love centre halves that take pride in their defending, who want to defend, who celebrate a defensive action like it's a goal, because that's what they have to do. They have to take pride in that. So many modern defenders now want to be on the ball and passing it around and look pretty. Rudiger will do a bit of that for you, but he wants to get down and dirty, and any balls up over the top, any physical battle, he will not shy away from it. So yeah, look, I really like the Germans. I think on form they're a force to be reckoned with here, and if they beat the Spanish, I don't think anybody will want to play the host in the final. So yeah, the Denmark game was a tricky game, but they made it look easy enough. And then with the rain delays as well, with the weather warnings, it could have been a really, really dangerous night. But really professional night from the Germans, got it done. And I think everybody now is just looking at the Germany and Spanish game and thinking whoever comes out of that is likely to get to the final.
Yeah,
there's a massive difference between Rudiger celebrating a last-ditch tackle like that and the likes of Pickford going down for an easy catch and turning to the crowd and pulling faces. That's the stuff that makes people not root for you. That's the stuff that you think, show a bit of decorum here. You're favourites to win the tournament. You're one of the favourites to win the tournament. You're scraping through against Slovakia, who nearly had you out for 30 seconds. And now you're going to start giving it the big one while lying on the ground after an easy catch. And people wonder why is it so hard to get behind the England as a nation, because stuff like that you go, look, you have no type of self-awareness in them moments to actually look and say, look, show a bit, like you said, that decorum thing of you've scraped through here against. So I'm not saying, yeah, you got through and you're in the next round and it's knockout football and all that stuff that comes with it, but have a little bit of decorum to go, we're going to have to play a lot better than this at the moment if we're going to go close to winning this tournament. So I agree with the Spain-Germany one. I love Spain. I think I love watching the wingers just turn and burn and get at people. I think it's great. I think you have a 16-year-old kid with braces on, like absolutely running amok, and he's playing in such a way that it's not like he's just playing like with a freedom. He's actually connecting with people and playing 1-2s, and his game intelligence is off the chart. This is a guy that played in the under-17 European Championships.
Yeah, I remember.
Ireland a year and a half ago.
And
we were
scored.
commenting on it, weren't we, Raf?
Yeah, we were, yeah.
We're like, look at this kid, like, and then he goes and does this, and then Nico Williams on the other side, who stands a boy up, goes by him, and then puts it into the roof of the net, and you're like, and Spain had gone where they kept the ball for so long, where you're like, it's tough watching Spain sometimes, because you're like, come on, give us something, end product. And now they're producing this end product where they're like, if you want to come and play a possession game, we'll do that, but if you overcommit in midfield, we're just flicking it out to these boys and they'll hurt you. Like, and that's the bit that, from a football point of view, I love it. I just sit back and think, if I was a fullback coming up against them, you'd have your head in your hands, like, because they're just exceptionally good. And I think that Spain are a lot more direct in getting the ball into them. And for me, if they get by Germany, I think it's going to take a lot to stop Spain. I really do. I think they just have game changers at the top end of the pitch. Everything Italy don't. And I'd love to see them with these young players go and actually turn the screw. I thought they were excellent against Georgia. I thought the difference between them going 1-0 down and England going 1-0 down was you never sort of doubted that they were going to make chances because they had dominated the game up until they conceded the goal. They were in the ascendancy all the time, and you thought this is eventually going to take its toll. England didn't have that pressure, where Spain just had it, and Rodri's touch, where you think he's going to open out and try and bend that on his right foot, so they block him, and then he just chops it, bang. And then the number 10 done it as well with the last goal. Think you're going to let it run across you. They take that long touch as like you open up your hip and you let it think you're gonna, and then you just check it back at the last minute. So hard to defend against, because if you overcommit to the check, he just opens up and bends it. So difficult. But I just thought Lamal and Nico Williams, like, honestly, I remember Chris Waddle talking about, and he was talking about wingers, and he says when he used to get the ball in a wide area, he says he'd hear all the seats click because he knew people were standing up expecting something from him. And that's what these two give you. They give you that moment of, oh, here we go. Like if I'm watching on the telly and I see them and then the ball gets out to them, you nearly sit up and go, oh, here we go. This will be good. And that's that excitement that you want. And that's what will inspire the next generation of players as well. So, yeah, I think Spain, Keith teach Germany. We can come back on afterwards and see. But, yeah, I just love watching Spain at the moment.
Yeah, would you be a bit worried, Graham, just in terms of their centre backs? They haven't really been tested yet. We thought maybe in that group stage, but then Croatia didn't really turn up. Italy, we've seen, are a bit blunt. But there's a lot of focus on Spanish centre backs in particular in terms of maybe individually.
Yeah, maybe. I think that they're really comfortable on the ball. But like you said, the own goal yesterday that comes from Normand, like it's a little bit, probably doesn't adjust his feet well enough, and he's probably hoping that it hit him and the keeper might come and take it. I don't know what he's thinking there. Can they deal with, like, Laporte has been decent and obviously he's moved on. Cucurella and Cavalli, if teams start just actually being a little bit more direct against them, they wouldn't be the biggest in terms of fullbacks. And if you can, like, as crude as it sounds, if you have strikers that are willing to pull onto the back post and get headers and they put crosses in, they could be hurt in that sense. But as a football team and the structure that they have, and Pedri and Rodri and in midfield, like, they're fantastic. They really are. And I just, like, look, they could get beaten if Germany decide to be a bit more direct and hurt them. In fairness, Havertz has been indifferent in front of goal, but some of the stuff he does is fantastic. Like the chance he had that he creates for himself where he drags it under his foot and goes through the gap, it's brilliant. But yeah, look, I think they're going to I think they will give up chances in terms of like maybe set pieces and stuff, but I think in terms of going forward, they're the best I've seen in the tournament so far.
Yeah, and I suppose, Keith, the word on Georgia as well. There's a lot of focus on them given who their manager is and his links to Ireland, Willie Sagnol, of course. What do you make of how he's had them set up through the tournament? This is their sort of Euro 88, Italia 90. This is their first sort of appearance on the great stage, and they've really, they've done very well in those circumstances. But in terms of the Ireland links as well, how do you, like, what's your view on that, given what you've seen of Georgia, and I suppose in particular, given that they actually do have like one truly world-class player in Kvaratskhelia, a type player that we don't have available to us. It's not a complete like for like.
Yeah, look, obviously with the Irish thing, you're looking at Sagnol and you're thinking, right, if he came into this Irish team, could he replicate what he's doing with the Georgians with the Irish? I don't think so. I think the way they're set up, a 5-3-2, it's brilliant. There's only yardages because obviously you can drop back and make that a 5-4-1. You can make it a 5-3-2 very, very easily. But what the Georgians do really well is there's not a lot of space. The back five is quite low. The three in front of them is probably 6, 7, 8 yards at most ahead of them. And you have the two up front that are saying, any sort of misplaced pass here and we're going to hurt you. But what the Georgians do in transition, when they win it, they find the pass really well. And the player who picks it up, whoever it is, they can all have a dribble. They're all really comfortable on the ball. They can go and commit people, go past one or two players with the dribble. So they can eat up the ground really, really well. When I look at from an Irish perspective, if we win it in transition and we give it to somebody in midfield, we don't have anybody that can go and drop the shoulder, beat 2 or 3 players, give it out to a winger and keep that attack going really quickly. We don't have that type of player. We don't have those type of wingers. Well, we have wingers that can get at people, but in terms of giving it to them in their own half and saying, go and eat up 70 yards and beat 2 or 3 boys, we don't have that. So Willie Sagnol, the way he has them set up is brilliant. It's exactly the way the Irish team need to set up in terms of being rigid, in terms of being dogged, in terms of not giving an awful lot away. And they went 1-0 up against the Spanish. And what Graham's saying there about the centre half not moving his feet, as an ex-winger, like Stephen Kelly was doing the commentary last night, and I have a load of respect for Kells. I would have played football for him. He went about over the top about the cross into the box. He kept saying it was a wonderful cross. It was just fed into an area. It actually bounces before it even gets to the penalty spot. And the Norman can't sort his feet out. He just hits him in the hip and goes in. It's dreadful defending. It's an okay ball in that should be defended better. So I do think if you're German and you're Fulkrug, for example, you're thinking, put some balls into that box and I'll go and bully a couple of people. Now, I don't think they can play Fulkrug by themselves because he might get gobbled up and isolated. But if they have a Musiala close to him or Havertz close to him, go and get on Cucurella, go and get on Danny Carvajal, go and get on, might even be Nacho comes back in, go and get on him, bully him, play for second balls. And Ilkay Gundogan, we all know he's going to be in and around second balls, he always is. So I think it's going to be an outstanding game. Probably a little bit similar to the Germans and the Spanish in the fact that I love the Germans in defence, love them in midfield, question marks up the top of the pitch in terms of Havertz and goal scorers. The same with the Spanish. Defensively, maybe some question marks haven't really been tested yet. In the midfield, on the wings, outstanding. As a goal scorer, Morata, Joselu, not too sure, but it's going to be a great matchup. But whoever I think is the more ruthless on the night will go through because they're so evenly matched. And again, with the Germans having that home advantage, I expect them just to eke it out somehow.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to look ahead to the remaining last 16 games here, and of course everything live on RT2 and the RT Player to watch, and also we'll have live blogs on some of the matches on rt.ie/sport. And the earlier game today is France against Belgium. Coverage starts at 4:30, kickoff at 5. And Graham, how do you see this one going? Belgium have been underwhelming. Their fans turned on them in their final group game despite them getting through, and France, we haven't seen the best of them yet, but you always feel there's gears that they will go through.
Yeah, I think France have a sort of an arrogance about them in that they know, look, we can go when we need to go. I think enough experience in that team to know it's not like where we touch on it where other teams are waiting to get going. I think France have been bubbling. They show glimpses of it and then they just go, look, that's enough. Like we'll save it for when we need it. And there's a little bit of it that they can go when they need, like we've seen that in the World Cup final when they're 2-0 down in this and going into the second half against Argentina, and they just go 30 minutes and you can't stop them, and that's when Mbappe becomes unplayable. I think I don't know the reason why Belgian fans turned on them. For me, looking in it was just a lack of ambition. All these people come to see a team go at a team, and we came to support you. We want to see it attack, and I think when they're happy to play out a 0-0 draw, knowing that you might get France in the next round, the fans are looking, thinking, give us more here so we might get an easier draw to go further. And I think that lack of ambition and that lack of drive, that mentality to go and beat what's in front of you and just take care of it and have a ruthlessness about you and a professionalism about you to do it, I think that would frustrate you looking at Belgium. It frustrated me looking in on the game, thinking, come on, like you have all this talent, drive it, like be ready to go so that you're honing that. And look, it might only take, like you said, that France a half an hour. Go and blitz Ukraine for a half an hour in terms of really go at them and attack them, kill the game 2-0, and then you've earned your little rest at the end of the game. But I just, that's where I don't know if they have the mentality to go and really go at France and believe they can win them, because they haven't shown that so far. Now, look, it might be one of those where because they're the underdogs in the game and it might galvanise them a little bit and they're waiting for this challenge to step up against the big team to see what you have. But they haven't shown that in the last 10 years in these big games that you believe that they can get over the line. And I think that comes with taking care of everything in front of you till you get to these big games and your confidence can build off that. And that's what France have. France will just take care of all that, whoever they need to, and whether it's a 1-0 or I think like 1-0, 2-0 here and there, they just take care of it and move on and go, right, let's go, let's see who's next. And I on the form and what we've seen so far and the history of what France have been, like World Cup winners, then getting to another final, I think France would be favourites to go through here.
Yeah, and then Portugal, Slovenia, Keith. Portugal had the job done in the first two games, although not great performance in their first game against Czechia, but they obviously bounced back then in their second group game. So a few more question marks emerged after they were beaten by Georgia, largely a second string team. Slovenia showed up quite well in the groups, and they're going to be underdogs anyway, clearly against the Portuguese this time, but still a few question marks around Portugal that have sort of re-emerged again.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks popping up. I take your point, Raf, that Portugal are already through against Georgia. It was largely a second string team, if you can call it that, because it was still a world class Portuguese team. Still had more than enough on the pitch to go and beat the Georgians. But give the Georgians credit, they played well and turned them over. But that's me one worry with this Portuguese team, that if teams do turn up and they're solid and defensively rigid, and all of a sudden they nick a lucky goal, I think the Portuguese can get the bottom lip out and have a little bit of a sulk and think, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And Bruno Fernandes starts waving his hands. Then Ronaldo gets annoyed. And then before you know, you have 5 or 6 players that just aren't really too interested. And again, it's the same. I feel like I'm going back to the United days, because a lot of my friends are saying to me, Portugal are a better team without Ronaldo. And I'm thinking, he scored 10 goals in the European qualifiers. How can he be a better team without him? And, it's just that ugly little conversation keeps rearing its head. Should Ronaldo be in? Should he not be in? Ronaldo should be in, but you have to taper your play to him. There's no point having him there and saying, right, we're going to flick balls into the channel, get Ronaldo running. It's not going to happen. He's more of a finisher these days, which is no problem. But look, defensively, it's funny because, again, people are saying to me, the English are tired. Pepe is 41. I know he didn't play against the Georgians, but more than likely he'll be back in tomorrow night. He's 41. He's had a long, hard season with Porto. He doesn't look like finishing anytime soon. So this tired stuff, I don't know whether they should just have a look at Pepe and what he's eating and how he's conducting his business off the pitch, because he looks absolutely brilliant. And I was somebody who was probably highlighted him and said, if you have a 41-year-old you're playing against, you've got to get after him. You've got to put him under pressure. But he's been brilliant. And with Diaz next to him, a Manchester City centre-half who's largely one of the best in the Premier League as well. That Portuguese team looks really good. João Felix, Rafael Leão, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Cancelo, the right back as well, can bend balls with the outside of his right, the inside of his left, all sorts of different angles. So, look, I think the Portuguese have enough to get through this tie. I don't see them going on to win it, although they have the talent to. Like I said, I just think there's a soft underbelly. I think if you scratch the surface and go down a couple of layers, they can get the bottom lip out. They can sulk a little bit, and they can be turned over, as we've seen with the Georges. But again, I take the point. It was a second string Portuguese team, but I do think there's a soft underbelly if you can get at the Portuguese.
Yeah, and they're on the tough side of the draw, obviously, with Spain and Germany. Obviously, still have to get past Slovenia, and then France, Belgium as well on that side. Now, on the weaker side of the draw, which of course England and a couple other teams are in, Netherlands, Romania. Graham, I know you've seen a lot of Romania in terms of doing co-commentary for RTE, but the Dutch are a little bit, they're hard to judge. They're sort of in that England situation, although having played slightly better.
Yeah, again, the good players in key areas, but is there enough around them? Van Dijk, obviously, top centre back. Ake is in Man City's left, but plays as well. So they've good players in there. Memphis Depay, he's a bit of an enigma in that he's really good. He comes off the game well and he links it, but he's not a threat in behind. He's never going to hurt you in that sense. But is he doing enough to link the game? And I think when he does come short, they need more runners. And Gakpo has been a willing runner for them, because in fairness to Gakpo, one thing he has got is legs, and he's willing to run. And he's been decent for them and a threat, but I just don't know if they have enough firepower to go all the way in the tournament. I could see them getting by Romania. Romania have been decent. Their back line is very well organised. I really like their right back, Ratoyu, plays for Rayo Vallecano. He's been excellent. Goalkeeper is very experienced, 35 years of age. Dragusin at Spurs has been really good for them. Excellent, a really good leader. They've the two Marins in midfield. Razan would probably be technically the one that's a little bit higher. Stanchu has been decent. Set piece delivery along with Marin has been good. The wingers, Mann and Coleman, are okay. Like they're energetic. They'll get at you. And Dragus up front, like he's a really hard working striker, and he has got quality to bring players into the game. So should they have enough to beat Netherlands?
Dutch,
I don't think so. I don't think so. But they had a reset, Romania. They had a reset about 6 years ago where this wasn't working for them, and they reset their whole structures, and they said, look, we have to be willing to suffer sometimes, and they became a little bit of a counter-attacking team, which went against them, trying to control possession. And then, don't get me wrong, they can still play, and they do move the ball well, but Netherlands should go through, but I can't see them. I can't see them going through like convincingly where you think, all right, that's a statement victory for the Netherlands against Romania. I think it'll be a tight game because, like I said, defensively, Romania decent. They weren't great in the last game against Slovakia. The first half an hour, they were really, really poor. Enes Hadji won a penalty for them, and Marin scored it, and then the game just sort of fizzled out because they both knew they were through on a draw. In the last 15 minutes, they just basically, both teams had turns of keeping the ball. But yeah, I could see the Netherlands going through, but I can't see them being convincing winners or going much further in the tournament.
Yeah, Yanis Hadji there, obviously son of the great Georgie Hadji, people remember from the late 80s, early 90s, who's actually, I think he set up a club in
academy,
Romania, and trying to bring the sort of next generation on, and whether that bears fruit. Well, they've done reasonably well to get to the knockout stages this time. So that game is kicking off Tuesday, 5 o'clock, coverage on RT2, RT Player 4:30. And then, Keith, the late game on Tuesday and the final of the last 16 games, it's Austria, Turkey. Austria, very impressive. Turkey have some great young players, but their matches have tended to be quite chaotic.
Yeah, chaotic, yeah, to say the least. But they do have an awful lot of young players that I really like. The Turkish Güler, obviously in the number 10 role. We've seen his goal as well. He's a fantastic little player. Yilmaz as well up front is somebody I really like. And I do think they've an awful lot of players, but Çalhanoğlu, the Inter Milan centre midfielder, he's going to be out on, I think he's had too many yellow cards, so he's going to miss this game. I think he's a big, big miss for the Turks. I know they've been good, and a lot of people will highlight the younger players with the Turks, but I think he's the glue that sticks this whole Turkey team together, and taking him out, I think leaves them at a big, big deficit. I'm a big, big fan of everything he's done for Inter over the last couple of years. But look, in terms of Austria, I think they have too much for Turkey anyway. I didn't see them doing this well whatsoever. I know a lot of people tipped them to do well in the tournament, but I've said it time before, I think with David Alaba coming out of that team, I didn't see them being able to do this. But with Danso and Lineheart at centre half, they've been largely really good. I like Sabitzer as well. He's a brilliant player. I know a lot of people, when he was at United, were thinking still not sure, but I think he's proven with his time at Borussia Dortmund and what he's done in this tournament so far. He's a fantastic player. Arnautovic is somebody again who, people wouldn't be chomping at the bit to get this player into their club. At West Ham did okay. He was good player, but he's somebody who you would probably view at being over the hill, but always turns up for Austria, always does well. Leimer as well. Baumgartner. They've so many decent players that can go and do things, technically gifted. So, look, I think the Turks will put up a fight. I think they've an awful lot of backing. There's an awful lot of Turkish fans gone over there to try and get behind their team, but I think they'll come unstuck. I think the chaos will be brilliant. I think they'll bring an awful lot of chaos to the game. But the Austrians, and with Ralf Rangnick, they're a different team. I remember doing his first game, however long it was ago, when he first got the Austrian gig, and he was coming into a team full of talent, but he needed to put a structure on it. He needed to put a way of playing, and he's done that. And nobody looks at this Austrian team thinking, yeah, I want to play against them, because they're tough to play against. They move the ball quickly. They can mix it up. They can put balls into the box from far. They can try and play a little neat, intricate style. So they can mix up everything they do. Defensively solid. In the midfield, not bad. And up front, they can score some goals. So, yeah, I fancy the Austrians there. But again, it's not going to be easy. But I fancy the Austrians to get through.
Yeah, so every game on Euro 2024 live on RT2 and RT Player all the way to the final. We'll obviously be talking more about it as it goes on next week's podcast. We're going to turn to domestic matters. First off, of course, Eileen Gleeson naming her next Ireland squad this Wednesday, and this is for games against England, which is taking place at Carrow Road, Norwich's home ground, and then also there is a match against France at Parc y Cuivre. And in the women's Premier Division, the results over the weekend, there's been a bit of a change at the top, but further down, DLR Waves and Bowes drew 0-0. Wexford continuing their recent resurgence with a 2-0 win over Cork City. Peamount were 2-0 winners over Sligo, and then Athlone Town beat Shamrock Rovers 2-1. So now they're top of the table, played the same number of games as Shells, and of course Athlone being the reigning Women's FAI Cup winners. And Maddie Gibson, who was involved for Athlone quite significantly during the game and during the win over Shamrock Rovers, she was chatting to Pat Costello afterwards.
Maddie, that's your 8th league win of the season. You're now top of the league. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, we're definitely happy, but the season isn't over yet, so we're just trying to take each game as it comes and hopefully win each week.
It took a while for the goal to come. It was a good goal when it did come, but you had probably had 3 chances before that.
Yeah, we created a lot of chances in the first half, and then we kind of stepped back a little bit, which we probably should have kept going. I don't think it was our best performance that we could put on, but it was enough for us to get the win on the day.
Yeah, after you did go in front, maybe you went a little bit into yourselves and then conceded a goal just in the stroke of half-time. Disappointed with that?
Yeah, definitely. Anytime we concede a goal, we're not really happy with ourselves. We always want a clean sheet and kind of be perfect, but that's just the way the game goes. So the fact that we kept going and got a goal back says a lot about our
You were involved with the winning goal. Tell us about that one.
I just got the ball on the right wing, cut into my favorite left foot, and I saw Izzy on the far side, so I just tried to play her over the top. She's such an amazing player and such a fast player too, so I said to myself, if I could get this ball over the top of the defence, Izzy's in.
It's been a great time since Kieran Kilduff took over as manager, WFAI Cup, the President's Cup, and now top of the league.
Yeah, it's been really great playing under him. He's a great manager, and I think we all respect him. And the fact that he was a player just helps a lot with his knowledge of the game. So I think we've only gotten better as he's been here.
And what about for you after all your travels? Are you happy with your football here in Athlone?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy with where we are in the league right now, and I'm excited that I'm playing with this group. It's such a good group, and everyone works so hard, so I'm just happy to be a part of everything.
Looking forward to the rest of the season then?
Yeah, exactly. Halfway through, so another half, and hopefully we stay at the top.
And then in the men's first division, which returned from the mid-season break, pretty good weekend for Athlone all in all. Their men's team beating Treaty United 1-0. Cove Ramblers and UCD drew 2-2. Cork City beat Bray Wanderers 1-0, so they're still far and away at the top of the table. Kerry and Wexford drew 1-1, and then Longford and Finn Harps also drew 1-1. And now we're going to talk Premier Division as it returned from the mid-season break and some eye-catching results. Derry City keeping pace in second place right behind Shells, 5-1 winners over Drogheda United. Waterford continuing their great season, 2-0 winners at Dundalk. Shelburne still staying at the summit, 2-0 winners over Galway United. And Sligo Rovers, with probably the surprise result of the weekend, continuing to leave, I suppose, Shamrock Rovers mired in sort of uncertainty. 2-0 winners for Sligo. Simon Power scoring against his former club with the brace in the second half. And then Pats and Bows in a Dublin derby drew 0-0. But let's start on Shells and Graham. And I suppose John Martin is at the heart of what was good for Shells in terms of the goals, but I suppose from a Shelburne point of view, the important thing as well, they won it without Gavin Malloy, who's going out the door to Aberdeen, but also without Mark Coyle, also, who was suspended for the game, and so to get 3 points was important.
Yeah, again, I seen the goals and I was listening to reports on it from Saturday. Shelburne seemingly more than deserved to win the game. I think even the penalty goal we get might have been a bit fortuitous, and then they ultimately missed it. But Shelburne were comfortable. They scored early on. Galway are probably guilty of overplaying for the first time and in a long time. And Shells nick it, and John Martin's in, and it's a really good goal. He carries it a long way and finishes it well. And he scored some big goals for them, in fairness. And he was always one of those players that was a handful, and you sort of wanted a little bit more from him. And I think he's gone into, this is where I think the players that Shells have signed have gone into a really well structured team, and they're able to flourish in that. You get that freedom in the structure, and they've been excellent. Look, they've 13 games left to play. They're averaging 2 points a game. They played 23 and they're on 46 points. So like with 13 points left, like they could get to 65 and you know, this could be done for them. But they've 2 big games. They've a big game coming up at the start of August against Derry at home. And then the last game of the season, it's going to be Derry Shells. And that's a massive game. And if we can go down, Derry be thinking they're 2 points behind, but Shelbourne have a game in hand. Can we get it to that game where it's all to play for and it's a shootout? Derry at home in the Brian McBride Stadium, last game of the season to win the league. That's what Derry's aim will be. But I don't look. We keep saying don't see Shells going away. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. They're there on merit. They're top of the league because they've got the most points. The league table doesn't lie, and they've been excellent. So yeah, it'd be interesting, like you said, how Derry react. Derry got a great win, but Shells fully deserved their victory, and that they're winning games. You expect them to win now. That was my when you are chasing the league, the dynamic of the other teams changes that play against you because they come with a different type of energy to the game, and that they're playing against a team that's top of the league. They can be a little bit apprehensive, a little bit extra tension in them, and that can breathe into the game, and they're trying not to get beaten first. And so winning games that you're expected to win is a really good thing to have, and Shells are getting that at the minute and totally deserve to be top of the league and totally deserve to beat Galway on the day.
Yeah, and then Derry City, Keith, I mean, the scoreline 5-1 looks very emphatic. If you try to drill down into the game, there were more challenges in it up until they started to streak clear after Pierrot's red card. But even when they're leading 2-1, Drogheda United had a goal disallowed, which maybe would have changed the tenor of the game somewhat. So it was more awkward than it looked. But from a Derry City point of view, they're not going to be complaining, I guess, because what they're looking for obviously is consistency and just to keep Shells honest, essentially.
Yeah, I think initially when you look at the 5-1, you're thinking it was a battering and it ended up that way. But as you say, Raf, I do think it was competitive for large periods. Drogheda didn't go up there and lie down. They went 1-0 down to a Cammy Donegan really good strike. It was outside the box with his right foot right into the top corner, and then Adam Foley managed to get the equaliser and actually cupped his ears to the Derry fan and said, "What do you think about that?" And I'm sure by the end of the 90 minutes he thought, "I wish I hadn't done that," because it obviously came round and slapped him on the arse. But look, Derry, I like Derry, and to be honest with you, Raf, I'm ready to jump ship now. I've been into Shamrock Rovers ship thinking that they're going to click into gear. When they come back from this break, it'll be better. You know what? I know they were a better team against Sligo, but I've been saying that for a long time now. They were a better team, but just 1 or 2 defensive mistakes. It's got to the time now where they really need to start winning games. And I don't see Shelbourne. Shelbourne could get caught by Derry, but I don't see them getting caught by Rovers. I think it would have to be a monumental, wheels falling off for Shamrock Rovers to be able to catch Shelbourne now. And even with Europe, my big thing was Europe coming, Shelbourne maybe getting a bit leggy, the squad getting stretched. Shelbourne have shown over the last couple of weeks, even in the last game, they can win without having their best team out there. They 2 players suspended through injury, 1 or 2 leaving the club. So they can win games under strength 1-0 and roll into Europe. So look, I think Shelbourne are slowly eking into favourites. I know Derry will be putting their hand up saying, "Hang on, we can still catch them," and there's every chance that they could. But Derry's form has been very, very patchy. They're struggling for that consistency, and I do worry about them at home. I hate that pitch up there. I know a lot of their own players hate the pitch up there. I think some of the staff hate it as well. It can be their undoing, but going and hammering a draw to the 5-1, a team that will be defensively solid, rigid, don't generally concede too many goals, it'll give you that little bit. Okay, with Shelbourne be going into Europe, maybe with the injuries, we just need to keep them honest here. And look, I think Derry and Shells are the ones. I don't think there's anybody else capable of winning the league now. I think everybody else is too far back. I know Waterford are in and around it, but realistically, I don't see them, being able to challenge. If we're talking about Waterford getting into Europe, I mean, what a season there they've ultimately had. And again, I don't think anybody, it's sort of become the norm that we talk about Shelbourne, being at the top of the league, Shelbourne going into Europe. I say it every time I'm on here because, you know, when you go in and you speak with owners of clubs and they say, I want success and I want it now. Shelbourne under Damien Duff, they're in Europe. They might win the league this season, and it's their third season back in the league. It's been a monumental rise. And again, Shelbourne fans should just buckle in and enjoy everything that's happening at their club over the next couple of years. Damien Duff has signed another contract. And I think any Shelbourne fan at the minute is looking at their club and thinking, generally, I know it's getting better, but in the League of Ireland, there isn't the foundation to build upon because there's year contracts, you know, it's rolling, there's so many ins and outs, but Damien Duff looks like a fixture there for the foreseeable future. One or two other players have some contracts as well. The foundations at Shelbourne look really good, so I don't see them being cut, Raf. I think they've gone slight favourites to win the league, which when they're 15 points ahead of Shamrock Rovers is probably a little bit obvious, but they're the other ones who will try and catch them. But I think Shelbourne have been unbelievable this season, and they've proven they can win games when they're not at their best, which is what you'll need to do when you come into Europe.
Yeah,
Drogheda were unlucky. Yeah. Drogheda were unlucky with the goal that was disallowed. I don't know why it was disallowed. I don't know if the refs have come out and explained it. I'm not sure if they're able to come out and explain it. But
that was the offside.
Yeah, they said it was offside, and it's a deflected goal, and you're like, that makes it 2-2. I thought the red card was a bit harsh as well. It's a second yellow. He's jumped back. He has his arm is out, and it might have been his hand that made contact. It wasn't an elbow. It's a hand, which you get as a centre back. Like you take them ones where it's a slap, but you're going to give a slap as well at times. You're going to step across them and hit them. I think them two decisions have probably gone against Drogheda, and then obviously the result then looks 5-1, and you think, oh, it's poor, but they have to go back and look at that decision and come out. And Kevin Doherty needs an explanation. If the referees ring him personally, it doesn't have to come out publicly, but you need the decision to be explained, because that makes it 2-2. And they're the bits that are just going against them at the minute. Like, you know, and that's where I feel for Drogheda in that sense, because it ends up people just look at the result and go, 5-1, Drogheda, they're gone. But I don't think that's a fair reflection of the game neither, like, you know.
Yeah, and then Sligo Rovers, of course, which was the highlight of the weekend, probably beating Shamrock Rovers 2-0, Graham, and two sides to this. Obviously, Sligo Rovers putting a 9-point cushion between themselves and the relegation playoff spot, which Dundalk currently occupy. And then the other story, of course, as Keith alluded to, in terms of the maths for Shamrock Rovers, it's probably turning into a two-horse race at the top now. 15 points adrift of Shelbourne, albeit with a game in hand on Shells and 2 in hand on Derry City, or 2 points off the summit. So where does Shamrock Rovers go from here? I mean, Europe is looming and maybe they can switch focus, but it seems very difficult to flick that switch, I guess, and go from sort of up and down results and actually seemingly more down in recent times, and then try and like rise yourself for what's going to be a tough game against Iceland's champions.
Yeah, and I know Keith touched on it as well. When Shamrock Rovers are in striking distance of winning the league, it's very hard to go, look, they're not in the mix. I don't think they're in striking distance. A couple of things have to happen. 2 teams have to fall off a cliff here and not collect points, which I don't think Derry and Shells will do. I think they'll have some blips along the way. Shells, like first time challenger for the title, the pressure that might affect them a little bit, and they might drop points, but I can't see that happening to both Derry and Shelbourne. So you have to overtake 2 teams, throw Waterford in there who are ahead of them and on the same games, then throw in the fact that their form this year has been erratic. So are they capable of going, is this team capable of going on a run? Yes, they are. But have they shown it this season? Probably not. So that's where you have to take that in. And as much as I don't want to write them off, and I want to go, look, I think everything's pointing towards that they haven't shown enough form that the other teams have. They haven't been able to get their best 11 on the pitch at any time this season. And therefore, I can see them getting points and maybe pushing and finishing ultimately third. But do I see them really challenging between now and the end of the year? I probably don't. I can see them, like, again, getting as much points as they can, but not enough that will overtake Shells or Derry. The game itself, they had a couple of chances in the first half. They weren't clinical enough. They had a chance in the second half. John Kenny threw on goal, weren't clinical enough. Simon Power comes on, goal, scores. Keeper should do better. Defender should do better. The second goal, then they're so worried about his pace that they actually drop off in the box. And I don't think you can. And then he pulls the trigger and then it's 2-0 and it's game over. And that's been the difference in that they haven't been as clinical this year. Again, there's more to it, but they haven't got the best players on the pitch due to injuries for whatever reason. They haven't had the form that they've shown previously. They've enough credit in the bank because they've won the league for the last 4 years. So if you take, and they got so much praise for winning the league in the last 4 years, but how you break it down by a game. Have they shown enough in the game to win the game? They probably didn't do enough. They weren't ruthless enough in both boxes. They didn't defend well enough and they didn't score down the other end of the pitch. Then you break it down over the course of the season. Like, they've conceded 24 goals, which is a lot for Rovers. That's a lot for them. They've only scored 30. They're Waterford have outscored them, and so have Derry. And then you look at the goals, like you said, the goals against, they've conceded 24. Derry have conceded 20. Shelbourne have conceded 14. Galway have only conceded 15. So out of the teams in the top half, it's only newly promoted Waterford that have conceded more goals than them. So both ends of the pitch, they've been struggling a little bit, and that's very hard to be successful off the back of that. Now, they deserve so much praise for the last 4 years, but take it on this season, they haven't been at their best, and you can't hide away from that. And again, how they fix it going forward, I don't know, but they really need to try and get it going into Europe, because we seen last year when they played the Icelandic champions last year, they got beaten and well beaten, especially in Iceland, and they're coming up against the Icelandic champions again. And if they go through, they get Sparta Prague, and if they don't go through, I think they end up with FK Borac Banja from Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then KF Ignata from Albania. Now, we've seen Albania are in the Euros this year, so I can't imagine that they'll be pushovers neither. But again, they got the seeded round of the draw. They should be coming through these groups, but it's a tough fixture for them considering the form that they're in as well.
Yeah, and what do you put the downturn in performance, especially in both boxes? Are you looking at maybe personnel, or are there little tactical things from a Rovers point of view?
Gary O'Neill's been a big loss because he protects the back line. Lee Grace has been out injured. Dan Cleary's been out injured. Hounahan has been playing in different positions, whether they've moved him from wing back to full. They haven't had any fullbacks consistently or wing backs consistently playing. Farouj has been injured. So it's personnel and then positions. I'm not one to go all in on the goalkeeper, but he has to do better at certain times. He makes really good saves at times, but then he lets in things that he should be saving as well. So you have to take the good with the bad with him. But again, that's led to probably a lack of consistency, and maybe top end of the pitch, they've missed Gaffney. They've really missed Gaffney. They've missed Jack Bourne, who hasn't been able to play. And then they've missed the Gary O'Neill that knits all that together. So again, it's personnel with them. But why they're getting so much injuries, I don't know. Again, I'm not around it. But it's something that if they're able to get their best team on the pitch, they go on a run. But I'm not sure they're able to do that between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, and then Pats and Bows, goalless draw. Keith, you were on co-commentary with Lushing Langan for it on LOI TV, but was it as dour as it looked? It looked kind of lively enough just based on the chances I saw.
There was a few little moments within the game, Raf, the odd tackle, the odd chance here or there. There was one that I should probably highlight. There was a Keaton header in around the 20-minute mark. Charaska made an unbelievable save. It was David Seaman-esque when he pulls it back from the line and clawed it back. It looked like it was about to end up in the back of the net. It was a brilliant save. But yeah, other than that, there was a few tackles, little bits of stuff. But you know, it was one of your more entertaining nil-all draws. It kept me interested for what it was. But yeah, look, I think there's improvements in Pats. I think that's the main thing. You know, a Dublin derby can go anywhere. Your form generally goes out the window. It's just who turns up on the day. But I was happier with Pats' defensive display. I thought you had more control within the game. And I'm not talking about control of the ball, because possession and control of the game are two very different things. Pats seemed comfortable in possession. Bowes had only one shot on target. Anto Breslin also cleared one off the line. And within 90 minutes of football, that was largely all Bowes had to offer. I'm not saying Pats offered a whole lot more going forward themselves. It was more of a midfield battle, touch tackle type of thing. But look, lots of endeavour, lots of trying, lots of running around. But with Solberg right back, a natural right footer playing right back, and Anto Breslin coming back from his intro, a natural left back playing left back, natural left footer playing left back, Grogovski coming back from injury, Redmond now as well look like he's coming back to his best after his long time out with injury. So the back four, hopefully that can get settled. They can stop conceding silly goals, because I think it's 27 goals conceded in 22 games, which is too much for Pats. They've already lost 10 games this season. 5 of them were in Inchicore. They're too easy to beat. They have to be harder. They have to be more resilient. And I know an awful lot of what Stephen Kenny does is open play, nice, neat. This is what we're going to do. But defensively is where Pats need to improve. Up the top of the pitch, I'm sure that will come. Pats have the talent. Forrester, Keaton, Mulroney, the two Kavanaghs coming off the bench from time to time. They have that talent. But defensively, they need to be harder to beat. They need to be harder to get at. You know, it seems like if Pat's go and press 2 or 3 nice passes and all of a sudden you're right at the heart of them, and that's too easy. Somebody has to smell the danger and think, well, what if they do get out of that press? So I need to just hang back here and just figure it out that way. So they can't be going all in on the press. They need to be a little bit more clever. But the building blocks are in place. They do look like they're going in the right direction. But, you know, this season, in terms of the league, I think the start has been so bad that if we somehow get into a European race and somehow throw a few punches and try and get into Europe, I think that would be acceptable. On the other side, we do need we'd like to win a game in Europe as well. With the season being so poor, I know that doesn't land on Stephen Kenny's doorstep. He's not in the door too long, but Europe is in Stephen's doorstep. So we'd like to win a couple of games there, get a little bit of a run going, and if we could somehow hang on the back of a Waterford, maybe just give us some sort of hope for Europe, which I don't think will happen. But if we can do that, building blocks for next year, I think Pat's fans' mind is already starting to wander to next year. But Europe is at the forefront as well.
Yeah, and Waterford, I suppose that'll be the final one we'll talk about, Graham. But their goal on the break with Parsons' pace and Connor Parsons' finish was brilliant against Dundalk. But I suppose looking at the game as well, Dundalk had their fair share of chances.
Yeah, like you said, I think it just goes to how clinical you are and the firepower you have. And Armand has been excellent for them. Obviously, Patterson and Asamoah. I know Asamoah is injured. So, Patterson just opens up the game, dribbles at them, and then Parsons with a brilliant finish. Mentioned to Dean McMenemy, who scores a free kick as well. And he's come in. I think they've put legs in the midfield, which has really helped them. But the power and pace they have up top and the clinicalness of Armand has been vital for them. He's probably been the sign of the season, considering, he's 36 years of age, and people are saying, when they lost Coughlin, to bring him in, I think he's been excellent. So, yeah, but Dundalk could be disappointed. They haven't conceded many goals at home. I think at the 8 games they went without conceding. But it just shows you that the firepower that Waterford have, that they can go and really hurt you. And they've shown that. I done the game Waterford down against Drogheda, and they were 2-0 down. They came back and scored 4 goals, and they just turned the game on its head. And that's what, like you said, that's what having that up front will give you confidence to know we're always going to nick a goal here. And to go to Dundalk with their defensive record and score 2 goals up there, it's a great achievement, and they fully deserve to be where they are. They've lost 8 games, which is the most of the teams in the top 5. They've only drawn 4, so it just shows you that what wins really do. But they've won 10, which is 2 more games than Shamrock Rovers, which is amazing considering they're newly promoted. And you look at the goals, like the top goal scorers, or the second top goal scorers in the top 5 behind Derry. So that's a marvellous achievement, and Keith Long's done an amazing job, not only to get promoted, but I think he's actually improved them because when I watched the game where they beat Cork to come up, I thought they might struggle. They might struggle in the Premier Division, but his signings has been really astute, and he's brought in pace up top, a clinicalness in Armand, and he brought in legs in midfield, and it's given them a great platform to be in the European spots this season.
Yeah, and the action resumes on Thursday. Obviously, there's Euros matches on the Friday. So Galway United and Bows playing, and all these games are at 7:45, except for one, which is going to be 8 o'clock. But Galway United will hope to bounce back when they face Bohemians. Drogheda United are the challenge for Shelburne now at Weavers Park. Pats going to Waterford, so that should be a really good game. Sligo Rovers looking to build on that win over Shamrock Rovers when they take on Derry City. So tough game up in the northwest there. And then Shamrock Rovers up against Dundalk, and if they have any small chance of trying to win the league, they'd want to be getting 3 points in that, and Dundalk also for opposite reasons in terms of survival. But anyway, that brings us to a close for today. So obviously every Euro 2024 match, as I've said, on RT2 and the RT player, and of course we're recording on a Monday tonight, so there's a couple of games, 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, same on Tuesday, and then the quarterfinals kick off on Friday and Saturday. But anyway, Graham Gartland and Keith Treacy, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.